All right, we're gonna move on now into the
Yes.
fun and
God,
jolly,
give me some warning.
into the fun jolly part of the show. Jim, I'm gonna give you a choice here. We could do a review, whatever it is that you watched, and get that out of the way, or we could start with guess the program instead of ending with guess the program.
Oh, let's start with guess the program.
Hold on.
Just because I know the people want to change of pace before we go to the trauma that was
Trauma.
Kansas City. The trauma.
Okay.
The trauma that was Kansas City. Because remember, I've always made jokes about, Kansas City was like the monogram pictures of the territories. You don't want to go to Kansas City. Kansas City, that type of thing. But they had 11,000 people in Kansas City for Monday Night Raw. I'm just going to make that comment. And Kansas City has grown up. It's a big money town now, but all those years they had actual wrestling matches, they wouldn't show up. But now that they will come out and speak to you I have sat through fucking school teachers giving goddamn speeches about lessons. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I haven't been in school in so long. I've heard teachers drone on, professors giving lectures. Lectures was the word that I was trying to use. That didn't take as long as these fucking wrestling promos. Did I make that clear?
Well, as we were saying, guess the program is a game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a game.
We go through programs.
People play.
We go through programs in my collection, and Jim guesses all the important details of the program.
Well, hold on now. Now you're overstating the case. I'm going to try to get the year and the town, but
and more.
I haven't been doing too good lately.
And more. Let me put this down. Here's our first one, Jim. The opening bout, one fall, 30 minutes. One fall or 30 minutes. Tony Milano versus Frank Valois.
Ooh.
The next contest, one fall or 30 minutes. Wally Dusick versus George Lenahan. The next contest, one fall, 30 minutes. Rudy Dusick versus Joe Milich.
Good Lord.
The next contest, one fall, 30-minute time limit. Emil Dusick versus Bibber McCoy. And finally, the main event, the wind-up, 2 out of 3 falls, 90-minute time limit. Ernie Dusick versus Gino Garibaldi.
Good Lord. Okay. Where do I begin? I do not have any recollection of Frank Valois' opponent in the opening match, but Frank obviously was one of I guess he would have been the first kind of handler that Andre the Giant had when he came to North America, right?
That's right. It was him and then Arnold Skaaland when Frank Valois and Andre had a falling out.
And people, because people have heard Tim White's stories on the Andre biography and some of those programs, but Vince Sr., well, going back to the Montreal days, that's what Valois' job was, in that when they first started sending Andre out to the United States from Montreal, he needed a veteran wrestler with him to help him, because he was a giant, and to know the ropes and not be bothered. And at the same time, it was his road guy. And Vince Sr. continued that tradition with Skaaland, and then later on Vince Jr. with Timmy White, whatever. Wally Dusick was not, he was not one of the original 4 members, Ernie, Emil, Rudy, and Joe, right? Wasn't it? Or was it Ernie, Emil, whatever the fuck? But Wally Dusick, I've actually met like several people on his card, I think, or at least 2, because Wally Dusick was an old timer, and he was the father of Frank Dusick. And Frank Dusek was a wrestler who also worked in remember the Dallas office and
Captain Frank
some of the
Dusek.
world-class days, Captain Frank Dusek.
Yeah.
And Wally was his father, and Wally used to live in Charlotte and come to the matches at the Charlotte Coliseum when he had to be 80 years old. This was in 1986. And he used to tell stories about going to goddamn Alaska and working in the Alaskan tundra or whatever they call it up there, pro wrestling in the 1920s. And it was just insane. But anyway, Linehan, I've heard the name, don't know too much about, but Rudy and Emil and Ernie in single matches on this card. Joe Milich, I met in St. Louis when we went there for Crockett the first time because, goddamn, who was it now? One of the guys that had been to St. Louis numerous times said, see that old timer over there? See, yeah, he said, he won like some ridiculous amount of millions of dollars in the goddamn lottery when it first came in somewhere. Joe Milich. And he would still come to the matches and visit with the boys, but he was like fucking 80 years old then, but was a multimillionaire. Bibber McCoy, why do I think he was in the service? Did he have a serviceman gimmick? Was he in the service during World War II? And Gino Garibaldi, help me with the relationship. Brian, is this Leo's
father,
brother or father? Father. I thought that because he would be too old, because this is the 1940s. And because of all the Duseks, I would want to say California, and I don't know where Joe Milich be. He settled in St. Louis, but he could have moved there with his millions. And Garibaldi, it's in California. It's the Olympic Auditorium, just because you're going to throw another one of those in on me. And I'm probably way off because it's going to end up being in New Jersey. But 1946.
Oh. Wow. Monday, March 4th, 1946, 8:40 p.m., and this is at the Camden Convention Hall, Camden, New Jersey.
You son of a bitch!
You said it! You said what was going to happen, and then you made it happen.
I made it. Do you know that I have a program? As a matter of fact, it may be this could have come from Big Andy Varga, your program, because I have one of them in New Jersey. I don't know if it was Atlantic City or Camden. It's on the wall in the vault, and I can't look around there now, with 2 Duseks autographed plus Sam Menaker.
Oh, wow.
And that was, but son of a bitch.
This one, it just says really big, 4 Duseks. And I'll read you just a little bit of the cover here. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. The gang of grappling Duseks, 4 of them. Ernie, Emil, Rudy, and Wally. They're wrestling's riot squad, you know. And customers cramming into Camden Convention Hall come Monday night may expect to make out with no end of wows watching these wallopers of pull and tug parade. Excuse me, on pull and tug parade. I don't know if I would call it that anymore. The pull and tug parade. All right. Box office flaggers around and about.
What? But wait a minute. What kind of box office? What?
Oh, no, excuse me. Figures. Figgers. I thought it was...
Figure, that's an old-fashioned sports writer's abbreviation for figures.
Box office figures around and about the grappling globe prove endurability. All right, well, this is Camden, New Jersey. We're going to
get to the cornbread hemp spot later on, folks.
You came so close to that. That was incredibly impressive. Let's go to this next one here. The opening contest. 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. Pat Fraley versus Chris Tolis.
Huh?
A special event, one fall, 30-minute time limit. Patty Neff, 135, Rome, Ohio, versus Lana Lamar, 145, Silver Hill, Kentucky.
Oh, what?
Where's that?
I've never heard of that town in my life.
The semi-wind-up, best of 3 falls, 45-minute time limit. Lou Soberg, I'm assuming Sjoberg,
Okay.
versus Adrian Belargeron.
Belargeon.
I get it wrong every time. Another special event, one fall, 30-minute time limit.
It better be.
Ruth Boatcalley,
Oh, good Lord.
140 out of Bryan, Texas, versus Ethel Brown, 135, Columbus, Ohio. And the main event, best of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. Doug Hepburn versus Fritz von Erich, 250, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee?
That's what it says here. Fritz von Erich, 250 pounds, Milwaukee.
I've heard Fritz being billed from Dallas, and I've heard him being billed from Germany, but I never heard Milwaukee. Okay. Pat Fraley, a journeyman of the 50s, of which this is. Chris Tolos, the brother of John Tolos. The Tolos brothers were a great tag team before John had to run as a single, and that's some clue as to the location of this, because Tolos, the brothers were based in Ontario at that point. Patty Neff and Lana Turner,
Lana
that
Lamar.
had to be 2 local girls, because they've got girls on the show later that you've heard of, but these couldn't have been, from, well, depending on whether it be the Mildred Burke, Billy Wolf, early Moolah contingent, depending on the exact year of this thing. I don't know who Lou Schloberg is, but Adrian Belargeon was a member of the Montreal Belargeon brothers. They were strongmen, wrestlers, weightlifters, etc. And that's another reason why this is going to be somewhere in Ontario and or upstate New York. Ruth Boatcalley was a name from the early 50s Mildred Burke crew, and so was Ethel Brown. Doug Hepburn was that or was that not, Brian, you can tell me without cheating, was that Doug Gilbert, as in not Doug Gilbert, the Gilbert family from Tennessee, but Gas House Gilbert? Was that his real name, or am I thinking of something else?
You might be right. There's a picture of him here, seemingly powerlifting.
Red head, very powerful upper body, chest. And Fritz von Erich is Fritz von Erich very early. The question is, could this even be, what year did he actually get the Fritz von Erich gimmick? Because this is late 50s, and if it's either going to be Ontario or the Buffalo, New York metropolitan area, 1958.
The card, Saturday, July 2nd, 1955.
No, that early.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Calgary. Son of a bitch.
Foothills Athletic Club, Stu Hart, president.
I should have remembered. He went to Calgary first.
And you asked about the women here. Ladies bouts, big surprise. Fast-moving lady wrestlers, 2 of them considered to be the best-looking girls in the acrobatic sport, have been matched in 2 special events at Victoria Pavilion Saturday night. The matches were made unexpectedly by the Foothills Athletic Club, which had already contracted Doug Hepburn for a main event match when it found out the girls would be available on the same date. Rather than lose the chance entirely to bring the 4 glamour athletes to the city, President Stu Hart wired immediate confirmation of the date, even though he was already out on a financial limb with Hepburn's guarantee. Of the 4, Lana Lamar has been rated by professional talent scouts as a natural in any major beauty contest. What does that mean?
Oh, good Lord.
She's been rated by talent scouts. She is a natural in any beauty contest. And not far behind her is Patty Neff, 19-year-old glamour girl from Rome, Ohio, who will oppose Lamar in one of the 2 bouts. So there we go.
And oh, you know what? No, Doug Gilbert's real name was Doug Lindsay.
That's right.
Not?
That's right.
So Doug Hepburn, I think, is a different guy. And
Doug Hepburn, the Canadian strongman sensation at the 1954 British Empire Games, is already well known to Calgarians.
Yes.
One of those for the spectacular feats of strength he has performed in the Calgary ring. Now he makes his local debut as a wrestler. For many fans, however, it won't be the first time they have seen the massive Hepburn in action on the mat. He has been a regular performer on TV programs brought to Calgary from Toronto, where he has been grappling under the personal supervision of Whipper Billy Watson. So there you go. That's a pretty big endorsement for 1955. You're Billy Watson's protege.
Well, and you know what? Also, we have, both you and I have programs from 1953 and early 54 from Dallas Sportatorium, Fair Park Arena with Jack Atkinson still on the card there. A year later, he's main eventing in Calgary. So that happened quick.
All right.
That's what I have to say about that.
I'm grabbing another one. By the way, that first program with the Dusix ticket prices, let me just, before I put this away, $1.90, $1.35, $1.10, and 85 cents. Available at the Adam Hat Store in Philadelphia.
Okay, now, look at here. Is that a suburb of where the Camden would be out?
Philly.
How far from Philly?
It's more Philly than anything in Jersey, yeah.
You could say it's Philly. The ticket prices, because we've been talking about this, we just read a letter on the last show we did, some Los Angeles research. The tickets in 1946 at the Olympic Auditorium were like 50 cents a piece, and they were struggling. Business was down. And I mentioned, Jesus Christ, they were charging more money in Nashville, Tennessee to get into matches in 1946 than they were in Los Angeles, California. And here, Camden, New Jersey, $1.90 is the highest price we've heard yet for ringside for 1946 between Nashville and Los Angeles. Camden, it must have been a rich city back in those days.
Well, Jim, let's go to our next program here. The opening contest, The Demon versus Daryl Cochran.
Oh, okay.
The next bout, Akai Yoshihara versus Jerry Oates.
You do and you'll clean it up.
The next contest, Taro Kabayoshi versus Big Jim Wilson. Billy Spears versus Sputnik Monroe.
Good Lord.
There will be a 10-minute intermission. Buddy Colt versus Bob Orton Jr. Colt has been hired by J.C. Dykes to get back the Inferno's boot taken by Orton Jr. He took the Clubfoot Inferno's boot? Huh, interesting. Non-title match. The Infernos with J.C. Dykes versus Rick Gibson and Tom Jones. Next, we have a 6-man tag team bout.
Jesus Christ, an all-star card.
Butcher Vachon and Stan Vachon and Bobby Duncombe versus Ramon Torres, Bob Armstrong, and Mr. 2 Wrestling, is the way it says it here. There'll be a 5-minute intermission.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I missed somebody. You got Mad Dog Butcher. Mad Dog, Butcher, and Stan Vachon and Bobby Duncombe against...
No Mad Dog.
Who?
No Mad... It was Butcher, Vachon, Stan Vachon, and Bobby Duncombe.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought, okay, very good. Against Torres, Bullet, and Wrestling 2.
After the 5-minute intermission, the main event, a 2-ring over-the-top rope battle royal, $5,000 purse, and a trophy to the winner.
Oh, well, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, if that ain't the Omni, but it seems early for the Omni, but maybe not. They open the Omni. So, it's almost, well, first of all, let's go down the cast of characters. Daryl Cochran, he was a longtime Georgia, Alabama talent, but didn't he marry somebody in Fred Ward's family, his daughter? Because Leon Ogle married the other one. He was involved some kind of way, I thought. Jim Wilson obviously is a famous name for all the infamous reasons in the wrestling business. And that's what I was at one point going to lean to the Mobile territory, but this can't be anywhere but Georgia because of these names. But Jim Wilson, that puts the window at really 71 to 74 already. Jerry Oates being on the card again indicates more Georgia, unless Fred Ward went out of his mind and opened up a baseball stadium for this show. Billy Spears was the mad magician, bleached blonde guy, and that was his gimmick. He could produce foreign objects from any place, and even if the referee searched him. And he served as a manager for a while. Sputnik Monroe is way famous, everybody knows, as do they know Bob Orton Jr., who was close to being a rookie on this card and was working with Buddy Colt, who was an established heel and one of the top heels in the state of Georgia, or state of Florida, rather. The Infernos, this Clubfoot was Frankie Kane. He had the loaded boot. And it was this him and Curtis Smith, probably? Or, well, nevertheless, yeah, I don't want you to cheat or anything. Ricky Gibson was Robert Gibson's older brother, and this, I think, would have been his first main event run in Georgia. It almost had to be, because he had really gotten over in Alabama in 71, 72-ish. Tom Jones, babyface. The Vachons had a run in Georgia for quite some time, even in the 60s. Ramon Torres, Bullet Bob Armstrong, Wrestling 2 dates it also. This has got to be in the Omni in 1973. God damn it.
The program, Jim, August 24th, 1973, the Atlanta City Auditorium.
Oh, son of a bitch.
The first annual NWA 2-ring over-the-top rope battle royal.
They put this card in. No wonder they were losing money. They put that card in the city auditorium. That's 1, 2, 3. That's a lot of guys. Well, all right. I got the town and I got the year. I didn't get the building.
Here it has the updated 1973 NWA official wrestling rules sanctioned by the NWA. Major rule change. The count on the floor is no longer 20, but has been changed to a 10 count. The rule went into effect August 11th, 1973. No hair pulling, eye gouging, strangleholds, or biting. That is what it says there. No pulling of trunks, masks, or other equipment. No straight punches or kicks with the point of toe. Note, contestants who repeatedly violate any of the above rules will be disqualified. The following violations are automatic disqualifications: throwing opponent over top rope, karate thrust,
striking the referee.
karate thrust to throat.
I was going to try to do them off the top of my head.
Okay.
Karate thrust to the throat, throwing a man over the top rope,
2.
attacking the referee. It was running the man into a ring post. Were they doing that then there?
Hold on. I don't see that one, no.
And also the pile driver.
The pile driver hold is, once again, automatic disqualification. Failing to break an illegal hold before the referee's 5 count.
Well, everybody knows that.
Any low blow or any blow administered to opponent with a jump off the top rope. That's in caps.
Ah, there you go. Because this was an NWA territory, and until I think they started in the late 70s, you could come off the top in Georgia, right? But before that, it was like Tennessee, when if you jumped off the top rope and made contact with your opponent, that was an automatic disqualification if the referee saw it, which is why when they brought Snuka to St. Louis when he was the hottest babyface in the business, people wanted to see the Superfly, so he did it, but they disqualified him for it. He lost the match.
Well, the other automatic disqualifications here, the use of any foreign object, any interference with the duties of a referee, you said that, continuing to abuse a defeated opponent, any interference by managers, seconds, or cornermen. And now we go to the tag team save rule. Automatic disqualification when one team member saves another on any shore pinning or submission combination. That's interesting. Wow.
A lot of territories, they got that deep in Georgia in the rules, but they didn't necessarily always enforce it that deep. Whereas, like in the Tennessee territory, they didn't even, bother to go that deep to begin with. But a lot of territories would have a one save rule. I think, didn't they do that in the Carolinas for a while, where you were allowed to save once, but if the second save was a disqualification, or then you couldn't save at all. Or one time, Jerry Jarrett, when he thought that, I think Lawler may have been booking it, he had the managers up and, interfering and all the time, and the people got disgusted, tired of it. So he instituted a rule that if a manager got out of the chair, it was an automatic disqualification. He had to sit at a chair in ringside, which severely, maybe the old timers liked it, but it hampered, guys like Jimmy Harderby or whatever to be in that position. But gradually, as they reduced the manager interference and it only happened behind a referee's back, then people forgot about the whole thing and they just kind of let it go. And then they started doing it again. And nobody cared because they hadn't seen it for a while. So it was just, different areas would have slightly different tweaks on the rules.
Intentional striking of referee will result in an automatic disqualification and suspension. The following maneuvers are illegal: judo chops, forearm blows, bolo punches, instep and flat of foot kicks. The use of ropes to gain leverage. Contestants may spring against the ropes, as in tackles and other such maneuvers, providing the contact with the ropes is momentary. It is legal to continue wrestling your opponent until he is clearly entangled in the ropes and referee calls for a break. Wrestlers caution to protect themselves on the break. Championships cannot change hands when the victory is gained by disqualification. In any situation not covered by these rules, the NWA will honor the judgment and discretion of the appointed official. And there are the official NWA rules. Georgia Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley and Les Thatcher in Atlanta, WTCG 17, Saturday 6 to 7. Augusta, WRDW, Channel 12, from 2 to 3 on Saturday. Savannah, WJCL 22. They're on Saturdays from 2:30 to 3:30, and also in Savannah on WTDC 11, Saturday 11 to midnight. That's in the middle of the wrestling war, so that's all their TV.
Well, and that's interesting that they didn't give, because Fred Ward at that time was technically a satellite territory, wasn't Columbus, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, and some of those spot shows they worked together with the Atlanta office, but Fred Ward owned those towns. So it seemed like they would have enough of a working relationship. They would have plugged Columbus and Macon and Phoenix City or whatever the fuck Fred was doing down there then. But because he even had his own TV show. They did
That's right.
A lot of times guys would rush from the TBS studios in Atlanta in the 70s down to Columbus and do a fucking studio show in Columbus and then have the house show that night.
And the rumor has always been that those master tapes actually do survive, right?
I heard for a while they were in, I think Fred's daughter's name was Rose and she married Leon Ogle and they had them in their garage somewhere. I don't know what the fuck at this point, but it would be nice if they surfaced while we were still alive. They wouldn't be worth, the Star Wars franchise, but it would be interesting.
All right, one more program here, Jim. The opening contest, Tito Copa versus Benny Ramirez. Ronnie Paul versus Killer Cox. Danny Little Bear versus Rock Hunter. Roger Nature Boy Kirby versus Steve Bolus in a non-title match. And the main event, for a tag title I won't name, the champions, Handsome Harley Race and Baron von Raschke versus Rufus R. Jones and the Stomper.
Well, and that would be Archie the Stomper, not Guy the Stomper, right?
That is correct, although I feel like I'm
Yes.
giving something away by saying that.
Well, no, you're not, because I knew that. I'm being facetious with you. Okay, besides Tito Copa being a famous band leader, wasn't he? I thought he was.
You're thinking of Tito Puente
there you go.
and the Copacabana.
At the Copa Tito, the hottest spot north of Encinitas. Benji Ramirez was the mummy, not my mummy in Smoky Mountain, but the mummy, the other mummy, one of the original mummies. Killer Carl Cox, everybody knows, was a classic worker and nut character and Dick Murdoch's idol. Ron Paul, is that Ron Dupree? Just, it's not going to make any difference either way.
I don't
but
know. There's no picture, so I'm not sure.
Don't know. Danny Little Bear is one of the
And by
more
the way,
famous native. Yes.
Let me just say, if we're doing that based on the picture here, I'm not sure this is Killer Carl Cox.
Seriously.
It's Killer Cox instead of KOX, COX.
Well, now.
And he has like
but
a
is
chin
there a
strap.
picture?
He has a chin strap beard, no mustache, and hair. Dark hair. It's not
Okay, it's not Killer. Okay, well, let's scratch that one off, you pretender. Danny Little Bear was a Native American star in the 60s and 70s, which this is getting close in the middle there. And specifically in the central states, he was a big deal, but he worked Tennessee for quite a while. He lived in Western Kentucky back in, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s or whatever. And I don't want to malign his character, but he spent some time in the big house over some kind of various violations of things. This was after his wrestling career was over with. Rock Hunter was a wrestler, but was more famous to the modern audience as a manager because he was on Georgia TV, etc. Roger Nature Boy Kirby, along with Les Thatcher and Dennis Hall, the Wrestling Cousins group, remember, from the early 70s. And obviously with Rufus R. Jones and the Stomper against Harley Race and Baron von Raschke, this whole card is Central States, whether it's Kansas City or one of the environs. Is it where else would it be in the Central States area with this number of names on the card? It's got to be Kansas City, and it almost has to be what 19 with Von Raschke was headed for greater things. He would win the title, but he could have worked here at the same time as he was working for Bruiser in Indianapolis because they didn't really have that full of a schedule in 70, 71. It was 1971 in Kansas City.
The date, Thursday, October 29th, 1970. Memorial Hall, Kansas City, Kansas.
There you go.
Apparently, Killer Cox here was also better known as Freddie Sweetan.
Freddie Sweetan.
A name you never hear when people talk about that dirtbag Bob Sweetan, his gimmick brother, Freddie Sweetan.
But, because it wasn't his fault. He was only a gimmick brother. He didn't share any of the same poisonous blood.
Well, there it is. Guess the program. I'm going to call this a success for you because you came so close to saying New Jersey, and it would have been that would have been the most impressive one for you to get. But Jim, coming out of Guess the Program.
Yes.
I'm feeling so good. How can I keep this good feeling going? Or, if I need better sleep, how do I get better sleep? Or many other options that you are here to tell us about from our new friends at Cornbread Hemp in Louisville, Kentucky.
That is exactly right. And again, we have neither confirmed or denied, ladies and gentlemen, that I have anything to do with this just because corn is in the name. There's a couple of fine young men, some entrepreneurs that have started this whole thing. And I've possibly a shadowy figure in the background, but nevertheless, Cornbread Hemp is the place you go for a plethora of products to make you feel better in mind, body, and soul. And I tell you what happened, Brian. Remember I told you about the mole story earlier? I was out working in the yard on Sunday, and that's when I encountered that mole just running around, and he ran up that drain pipe. Now, this is not because of any of the THC gummies that Cornbread makes, folks. I actually saw the mole. But what I'm telling you is while I was out in the yard, I was wheelbarrowing, and I was raking, and I was weeding, and I was down on my knees in the soil. And I hurt myself. I was sore. By the time that I was ready to lay my weary bones down that night, Brian, I felt like I'd been beaten with a sack of wet hammers. And I realized then that not only does Cornbread Hemp have the gummies to help you sleep, or the seltzers to elevate your mood, or the various other products that you can find out about at cornbreadhemp.com, they got the balm. They have the soothing CBD balm, and what I did was I took that balm and I rubbed it all over my body. And I laid down in the bed, and as I could feel the instant relief starting to take place, I drifted off into dreamland. And Stacy said during the night, I actually started glowing. I was phosphorescent, glowing all over my body from the wonderful feeling and the aura that I was exuding. And the next morning, Brian, I'll have you know, I woke up, and not only did I not feel like I'd been run over by a Volkswagen Beetle, not only did I not feel like that all of my bones had been disconnected and put back together in the wrong order, but I had the body of a 25-year-old man, Brian, I'll have you know that.
What?
As a matter of fact, and I've unfortunately got it all stretched and wrinkled, but it felt like it. Yeah, I mean, it made me a whole new man. I came out, as a matter of fact.
That's not how this works.
Also, I'm 4 inches taller.
Okay, no, this is not how any of this works. You're not any of these things. What you are is in a position to feel good. And of course,
yes.
I'll tell you, Suzanne actually tried the sleep gummies the other day, and she liked it, and she had a great night's sleep, and she told me that, I better not touch them. They're hers now.
Well, that's what the next day, since I didn't go out and hurt myself, I had one of the sleep gummies, this CBD sleep gummy with the valerian root, the chamomile, the lavender, and the full spectrum hemp extract.
Chamomile.
The chamomile. It says right here, there's an H in there.
That's not how you don't
It's
pronounce
grown in Kentucky. Who knows better, you or me? This is grown in Kentucky because cornbread hemp they're Kentucky boys, and their packaging is flawless and professional.
Did you
it's
see?
Amazing.
Did they send you that card that showed like the Kentucky soil and why they're stuff? Did you know about any of that?
Well,
the special
of course
bedrock,
I did.
the special limestone.
Yes, because we've got incredibly juiced up soil and water and stone and things around here. Nature's wonderland is Kentucky. And they also sent me the thing on the seltzers that are 100% federally legal with 5 milligrams of pure THC.
I don't know if I would lead with that. You make it sound really debaucherous.
No, that's the leading fucking selling point, folks. These are 100% federally legal, but otherwise, woohoo! Grown in Kentucky, low calorie, low sugar. There's no alcohol involved in the seltzers. And as I mentioned, the sleep gummies, I took some of those. And the next morning when I woke up, well, what did I do? But I'll tell you what, I dreamt the whole night through that I was leading an orchestra and I was just floating away on the musical notes. Are you unwrapping some shit over there now?
I was unwrapping shit over here. You were a conductor?
Yeah. I was a conductor. I was conducting the musical notes that I was floating away on in dreamland. But it's you got to go to Horn. You got to
go to Horndorn. Yeah, stuff's really working great. Ladies and gentlemen, our new friends, Cornbread Hemp, once again from Louisville, Kentucky. There is a lot of people thinking that Jim Cornette may secretly be behind this, but we are behind it in that we're talking to you about it. And we have tried it, and we use it, and we like it. And I'm going to try that seltzer later today.
Yes, and what I was saying is if you go to cornbreadhemp.com, they have all the varieties of products. They can talk about your healthy happy hour, skip the alcohol, and experience your healthy happy hour. All this stuff is grown in the soil. God intended it to be used for our health and resources. And if you go to cornbreadhemp.com, you're going to find out exactly what they do and what's going on. And because they know that you're with us, then all you got to do when you go to cornbreadhemp.com and you check these products out and you order the things that you might be most in need of, you use cornbreadhemp.com/JCE and use the code JCE at checkout, 30% off your first order. Why, that's a bunch of gummies or whatever that you might, or a bunch of the balm that you can rub all over your body. But whether you need your body needs to, and don't forget the seltzer, and you can rub the seltzer all over your body.
You can drink the seltzer. I don't know about why anyone would want to rub it on their body.
You can drink it. You can bathe it. Well, you can do anything you want to with it. It's free country, but some people use it for colonics. But nevertheless,
let's not. Nevertheless, yes, folks.
Nevertheless, that's why I said, some people, but I wouldn't say do that. But you want to maintain your physical and mental wellness.
I'm trying as hard as I can right now to maintain.
That's what you want to do.
Physical health.
You don't want stress. No, and the CBD gummies will help you feel better on that, or the THC gummies make you need a little relaxation. You got that? They only use the best part of the hemp plant, Brian, the flower. That sounds like that'd be the best part of a plant to me, for the purest and most poignant CBD.
Potent.
Yes, that's what I said. All products are third-party lab tested and USDA organic. So, and also that's what they feed this stuff to the USDA approved cows.
No.
So they have USDA approved steaks.
We don't know again.
That's why the cows are in such a good mood.
We don't know any of this to be any reason for anything, but let's go back to a wonderful thing for the listeners.
Any reason for anything of what?
Exactly.
I'm telling you what science dictates.
What science? What science? Where is the science?
The science of the lambs. They tested that. Haven't you ever heard?
Well,
Haven't you ever heard about that? They tested this stuff on lambs and they loved it too. That's why they called it the science of the lambs.
Ladies and gentlemen, like Dr. Lecter going to a nice meal, let's chomp our way back into telling you about our friends. One more time, Jim, Cornbread Hemp, assuming that we're ready for you to give the big reveal of the big promo code here.
Yes. Cornbreadhemp.com/JCE. And you can take their products and feel better mentally and physically, and it's good for you. And it'll silence your lambs. All products, again, third-party lab tested. They have 3 parties in every lab, and they test them out at every single one, and they got a majority approval. Thumbs up. Cornbreadhemp.com/JCE. You're going to save 30% off on your first order. Folks, support the Kentucky boys here that are making us all try to be happier during these trying times. In thanking you, I will close. Cornbreadhemp.com/JCE.